Welcome to Settled on the Field, a bird's eye view of the sports landscape, from Little League, travel sports, high school athletics to recruiting, NIL, and walk ons. Join us on a rocket ship to the next level. Welcome to Settled on the Field. Hey guys, hi Bill, hi Jeb. How you guys doing today?
LIZ, Jabber, what's going on? I'm having a great day.
Great to see you, Bill. Good to see you, Liz. Glad to be here.
Kruper,
Always
what's
happy to
this
be
hat
here.
you're wearing today?
Oh, that's the stinking Lincoln, USS Abraham Lincoln. No big deal. Shall not perish, apparently.
Is this the ship you were on?
Yeah, this is the second aircraft carrier I was on. Jeb, what kind of hat you got on there?
Morris Park Golf Club.
Okay. Morse
Right
Park.
on. Well,
Hold on. I got Gail Sayers' autograph at Morse Park.
Nice.
Yeah, we'll have to pull it out sometime.
it's a nice picture. It's a nice picture we got there. This is going to be a different episode and I'm excited for this one. We've had a lot of requests. A lot of people asking Jeb, specifically the expert, about lacrosse. So lacrosse is just getting started. This is the time of year where lacrosse kicks off, and maybe you have a kid who's just starting in lacrosse and you are not really sure all the rules, because there are some definite different rules. I went to my first lacrosse game last weekend, 2 weekends ago, and I learned a lot pretty quickly. So we're going to have Jeb teach us the 101 and maybe a few extra rules about how lacrosse works.
All right, guys. So you have a kid playing lacrosse. So you're going to drop him off at practice, and he's going to learn some new skills and have a lot of fun with his friends. But you're going to go to the first game and have no idea what's going on. As you can see on the first slide, this is the lacrosse field. It's 60 yards wide, similar to a football field, and it's 110 yards long. There's two goals, one on each end, is basically to score more goals than the other team, just like in soccer or hockey. Also on the lacrosse field, as you can see, there's what's labeled as the defensive area. A lot of times it's called the goal box. It's at each end of the field, and it's 35 yards long from the 25-yard line into the end zone, and it's a 40-foot wide goal box, they call it. So that's where the offense will do their attacking from.
I've got a question. How many refs are on the field at any one given time?
So typically 3. At some of the lower levels, there'll be 2.
Okay.
Players are all required to wear a helmet. They also wear shoulder pads similar to hockey shoulder pads. Hockey shoulder pads, lacrosse shoulder pads are smaller than the football shoulder pads Bill played with.
Hey, even the football pads these days are smaller than the pads I played with. Same with you.
The chest of the shoulder pad comes down to about the mid-torso, gives you a little more protection. Players also wear elbow pads, and each player wears a set of gloves with paddings. There will be a lot of stick contact into the elbows and hands, so this is what protects them. Players also required to wear a protective cup, and they wear cleats, similar to football or soccer.
I will say I was a little surprised with the lack of padding, maybe down by their ankles. They're wearing sort of like regular shorts, right? And I was a little surprised by that. But I guess it's for freedom of running across this field, because they're running the whole entire time.
Well, speaking of lack of equipment, there's 2 different types of sticks. The players have a stick. The netting of the stick has a pocket, and the pocket cannot be deeper than the ball. So we'll talk more about the stick, but the goalie stick is a much bigger netting. And speaking of pads, the goalie pads are not, they're minimal. The goalie has a stick that's bigger, but then he typically just has a helmet, maybe with a neck shield, and he wears a chest protector that's a little bigger. Picture it like a catcher's chest protector that's underneath his jersey. And they may wear shin guards, Liz, but most of them don't.
What
Interesting.
about
Well,
the length of a defender stick? Is there a limit to that? They seem to be nearly twice as long as the
Yep.
attackers.
Yep. So on the field at one time, you can have 4 long sticks. So typically the defenders may have a long stick, and you may have a midfielder that's called a long stick midfielder. So we'll talk more about the different size sticks here shortly. All right. So teams consist of 9 players on the field and 1 goalie. Each team is going to have 3 attacking players. So as you can see here, uh, there's the attackers. So you see 2 up in front of the goal, and then there'll be one that plays a lot of times behind the net, and he's often referred to as the X, as the play area behind the net is the X position or the X area on the lacrosse field. So we'll get into more about sidelines and out of bounds, but there is an area behind the net that's about 15 yards long where the players can move with the ball, defend back there. And so a lot of action happens behind the net. Then next we have the midfielders. So the midfielders is a really unique position. There's offensive midfielders and there's defensive midfielders. Now, one more thing on the attack, and you see the 3 attackers. Now you see the 3 midfielders. So that's a total of 6 players. In a lacrosse game, you can never have more than 6 guys on one half of the field. So if it's on your attacking end, you can have 3 attack and 3 midfielders. If it's your defensive end, which we'll bring up here, the defensive end will have 3 defenders. And then when they are on defense, the midfielders will drop back, and then you'll have 3 defenders, 3 midfielders for a total of 6 on that half of the field.
so basically, once you get past midfield and they're running this way, the offense runs off the field and the defense runs on, or at what point do they?
So it's typically the midfielders that change,
Oh, it's
and
the
we'll talk
midfield.
more about
Okay.
that here in just a moment. This is your setup at the start of a face-off or at the beginning of the game. 3 attackers, 3 midfielders, and 3 defenders. So as you can see here, this is a face-off, and if we pause it right there, you see right down there is 3 offensive gray players. Then there's 3 defensive white players, and then also a defensive white goalie in front of the net. So those 3 guys for the offense and 3 guys for the defense on a face-off can't cross that 30-yard line. That's the goal box that we spoke about. And they must stay inside that box until possession is gained after the face-off. Again, there's the attack guys. All right, there's the midfielders. So as you can see, the wings on the far side of the field, there's a gray winger and a white winger, and on the near side of the field is a gray winger and a white winger, and they are outside of the hash mark. And then on the inside center circle is 2 players that are taking the face-off. They're the face-off specialists, and once they get set, they can't move until the ref blows his whistle. Now, if we forward the video down, you'll also see at the other end of the field is the defense. So here's the gray defense, 3 gray defensemen and the goalie, and then the 3 white attackers. All right, and they're all inside of the goal box on the white attacking end of the field. So now as we come back, we're going to see the face-off has started, and a battle for the ball. And there's actually a whistle there. One of the white players pushed off, so gray gets possession now. So at the attacking end, when the ball's in the team's attacking end, they may have a total of 6 players in the attacking half of the field. So it typically consists of the 3 attacking players and 3 midfielders. We'll talk more about midfielders shortly, but as you can see here, the gray team is on the attack, and they have 6 players down on their offensive end of the field. And they work the ball around to the left side, and then it goes, the white team's on attack, and they'll pass behind the net here, and then he'll come out from behind the net and shoot and score. Offensive possession.
So Jeb, on the crease, we talked about it was a 9-foot circle, but it's really a semicircle he can be inside of that 9-foot range behind the net?
No, so it's a complete 9-foot radius circle, and he can come around behind the net. There's 15 yards behind the net that he's allowed to run around in. He just can't come inside of that circle right around the goal.
Okay, and what is the penalty call for when he's inside of the crease with the ball?
If the offense ever goes in the crease with or without the ball, it's a whistle, and the defense gets possession. The goalie gets possession.
I think they should have gave the goalie the possession on that one.
It's hard to see, but he doesn't enter. He jumps past it.
So he jumps over it. Okay.
So you can think of an offensive possession kind of like a basketball possession or a hockey possession. The offense will work the ball around trying to get the best shot possible. The players are free to move anywhere on the offensive end of the field, including behind the net. Again, the X position. In hockey, this is where Wayne Gretzky made his money, passing from behind the net. The offense will work the ball around the perimeter. The players are free to move anywhere on the offensive end of the field, including behind the net. The player behind the net, again, is called the X. In hockey, this is where Wayne Gretzky made his money, passing from behind the net. The offense will work the ball around the perimeter. They'll use cuts, and they can set picks, just like in basketball. The offensive players may never enter the crease, as we discussed. A defensive player can cut through the crease, but they can only do that without the ball, so they can just run through it. But they cannot possess the ball in there. Only the goalie can. Defensive positioning, very similar to the attacking team. They can only have 6 players in their defensive zone, so they can have their 3 defensive guys and 3 midfielders that are typically defensive midfielders. One unique aspect of defensemen is each team is allowed 4 long sticks on the field at a time. Some teams elect to have all 3 defensemen using long sticks and a midfielder with a long stick for 4 total, but you can never have more than 4 on the field. Defense is played similar to basketball. So just like you see there, he's kind of shuffling his feet and kind of keeps the guy in front of him. You kind of set up a perimeter. You don't let him inside the middle. It's very similar to hockey and basketball on the defensive end.
So what are you allowed to do and not allowed to do with the stick? And is there any difference as to what I'm allowed to do with the long stick? Is it just longer?
Great question, Bill. So defensively, you may check with your stick, the opponent's stick, but you've got to keep both hands kind of on your stick. You can't swing at it really hard one-handed. You can't trip them. You can't slash them purposely, and you definitely cannot hit them in the head. So as you see in the video here, the defense dislodges the ball with a stick check, and then we have a ground ball, and they battle for it. And once the blue team picks it up, they try to turn and go the other direction. So just like you asked, you want to just make sure you're not purposely hitting in the head or anywhere like the body parts that are not attached to the stick.
And then if you do accidentally or on purpose slash or trip someone, it's a penalty is called and you go to the box.
Yep. So you go to the box. It's called, so the offensive team then would be allowed to have 6 players in their offensive end, and the defensive player would be down the penalty guy, so only have 5 defensively. Penalties are usually 30 seconds for a basic penalty, sometimes a minute. If it gets a little more flagrant or maybe unsportsmanlike, it can get up to 2 and 3 minutes. And we'll talk about penalties here at the very end as well, but great question. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the midfielders, and they can play typically the entire field. So the field's divided in half at the 50-yard line, and neither team's allowed more than 6 players on either half of the field. This is not including the goalie. You can always have your goalie. But basically, the midfielders here starting a face-off, as we discussed earlier, the wingers can't cross the center hash mark until the ball is started, or they can't come out of the hash mark until the referee blows his whistle, and the face-off specialist will battle for it, and then whichever team comes out of the scrum begins their possession. The midfielders are typically designated as offensive middies or defensive middies. In lacrosse, there's free substitution similar to hockey. So as this video plays through a couple times, the requirements for a substitution on the player is the field must exit between the 45-yard lines and a 10-yard section between each team's bench. Once a player reaches the sidelines, a new player can sub onto the field during the substitution. So you'll typically see once a team has possession of the ball, or after a timeout, the player in possession of the ball will get the inbounds it basically by starting up play again. He can run with the ball, pass the ball, he can shoot, whatever. As long as he waits for the ref's whistle, they're free to move. So there's no true inbounds. They basically just get in play. The defense has to stay 5 yards, and then once the ref blows his whistle, it's game on again. If the ball leaves the field, you'll notice when you're at a lacrosse game that there's balls laying along the sidelines and behind the net, and this helps with the quick restarts. And the most unique thing about inbounds and out of bounds in lacrosse is when the shot goes out of bounds, it's whatever team's closest to the ball gets possession. So in the video, you see the white team shoots, and you'll see two of the white players running behind the net, reaching their sticks out. So it's a judgment call by the official as to who's closest to the ball when it gets out of play after a shot. So it's kind of just like a race. Now, if
That
the
seems
ball's
like a
pushed out
very
of bounds,
hard call.
right. More than that, the offensive team has their X player behind the net, so he's going to typically be closest to the ball. But every once in a while,
That
you
makes
actually
sense.
see the goalie will be closest to the ball by running back there.
Yeah. It just seems like that's that one play that if you're playing pickup lacrosse, obviously you don't want to argue too much. Let's just keep playing. But like, no, I was closer.
Yep.
It's a tie game with a minute to go.
So the clock stops on every ref's whistle and then restarts right away. So there's very little downtime, and they've improved that a lot over the years. Let's talk about a change of possession. So teams are either in possession of the ball and attacking, or they're attempting to clear, if they're in possession of the ball and they're attempting to clear their defensive end. So the attacking teams, obviously, they're attacking, they're trying to score. But there's times where the defense will get the ball, and then they have to take it down to their attacking end. And here's one of the unique things, like in basketball, you have 20 seconds to cross center field, midfield. So if you get the ball on your defensive end, you have to advance it to the other half of the field within 20 seconds. On top of that, you have 10 more seconds once you cross midfield to get the ball into the goal box. So the first thing you got to do is cross midfield in 20 seconds. Then you got to get inside the 30-yard line into the goal box in 10 seconds after that. So you can see here the defensive team gains possession, and they got to attempt to clear the ball. And so watch the video here. So here you see the defense gets the ball, and they throw it up ahead from the goalie to a midfielder or a defenseman, and he takes it down to his offensive end, and a couple passes later, they have a quick goal. So that's a great fast break goal by the white team. Teams try to advance the ball up via running, passing, or a combination of the two. In some cases, the goalie will advance the ball up via running or throwing, and in men's lacrosse, the goalie can go all the way down and score. Or in women's lacrosse, though, the goalie cannot. The defensive midfielders will substitute out for offensive midfielders. The technique and strategy is different for each team. While the defense is attempting to clear the ball from their defensive end, the attacking team or forwards will pressure the defensive players and attempt to steal the ball, trying to cause a turnover by knocking the player's stick, stealing a pass, or not letting the defense clear the center midfield within 20 seconds. While the defensive team's attempting to clear the ball from the defensive end to their attacking end, The attacking team forwards will pressure the defensive players and attempt to steal the ball. They'll either steal passes, knock the ball out of their sticks, or stop the defense for crossing the midfield in 20 seconds. Remember, attacking players can't cross midfield until the ball comes across. So as you can see, sometimes there'll be ground balls that they can't come across to receive. During these attempted clearing opportunities by the defense, you'll see a lot of ground balls. Ground balls is a stat kept in lacrosse where the ball's on the ground. Both teams will battle for the ground ball to gain possession. This is typically seen at face-offs or when there's a loose ball on the field. You'll hear the term ball down from the sidelines, notifying the players on the field that there's a loose ball. This is where change of possession happens quickly. Unlike basketball, there are no jump balls. You just battle for the ball to gain possession. Once you gain possession, do as you choose, but know you're being chased, and many times players will be getting hit. During loose ball situations, you may not push from behind, and you may not also come from farther than 5 yards away to check or hit a player. To pick up a ground ball, it is best to have your stick parallel to the ground, as opposed to an angle like a shovel. Having the stick parallel to the ground with the bottom hand on the stick close to the ground allows for a scoop technique and makes it easier to pick up a ground ball and receive possession. Next slide. As you see here, the offensive team will use a cut to the middle and a pass similar to basketball. Another tactic on the offensive end that is used quite often is for the X to pass the ball to cutters, similar to a pass from behind the net in hockey. The next advantage of the X behind the net is for the offensive team when a shot misses, the X player is closest to the out of bounds. Offensive teams, in many cases, will set up plays and work the ball around with precision, passing, and cuts in order to gain prime shooting spots. Other times, fast break goals are scored during changes of possession, and in some cases, the defender will get the ball in a clearing opportunity and run the ball all the way down the field and into the offensive end and take a shot. This is called a fast break. Teams clearing the ball just need to be aware that only 6 players can enter the attacking end. So if a defensive player runs down, the midfielder may not be able to enter because you can't have more than 6 guys at one end. Lastly, fouls. Personal foul penalties, slashing, tripping, and blows to the head, late hits, and unnecessary roughness are always time-serving. Much like hockey, time-serving penalties are served by the offending player in the penalty area near the substitution box. This gives the offended team an extra man advantage called an EMO or a man-up opportunity. Unless the penalty is non-releasable, like a unsportsmanlike conduct, illegal stick, or illegal contact to the head, the penalty is released if the offending team scores a goal. Technical foul penalties, offsides, crease violations, false starts at the face-off are just change of possession fouls. And so that's the basics of lacrosse. Check us out at settledonthefield.com. Email your questions to settleonthefield@gmail.com.
Liz, you got any other questions?
Well, that was really informative, and I feel like much smarter, and I'm excited to go to my next lacrosse game because the first one was really fun. And I just wanted to kind of reiterate. So lacrosse is a little bit like hockey in that there's the power play. That was the first thing I learned at the lacrosse game, and I thought that was pretty cool that they're very similar in that aspect.
Yeah,
And
that's
you
one
set
of my
up defensively just like in hockey. You kind of make a box and protect the middle.
some of my favorite basic rules of hockey and or lacrosse is when you just got to sit out and you're a man down. That's awesome. I mean, basketball could do that and it exponentially improve the game like overnight. What do you see as far as fields when you show up? It looks like there's a lot of extra painting and whatnot for the lines and everything on a football field. Does that ever cause an issue? It's not ready, or some places have their own specific lacrosse fields.
Very few specific lacrosse fields. and it's very confusing because the lacrosse field being 110 yards goes 5 yards into the end zone of both end zones on a football field. So there's a line right down the middle of the end zone. And usually in an end zone, you have your team name or whatever. So there's definitely confusion on the out of bounds lines. The white sideline for football, the lacrosse
It's
field
7 feet wider, so or
yeah,
yards. I mean,
so it
yeah.
extends a little farther. So it's confusing on that. But it is what it is. There's usually just play on. The ref blows his whistle and the ball's started right back up. It's nice. There's very little controversy because no one knows what's happening. One. And two, the startup is right away. So,
Yeah.
similar
Just
to
play on.
basketball, you just inbounds the ball and we keep moving.
So do they get timeouts? I didn't really notice a lot of those.
Yeah, each team gets, I think, 3 timeouts a half. I'm not positive on how many, but definitely. So you'll see a guy has possession of the ball and he's getting kind of beat up by a couple guys. The coach may then call a timeout to try to keep possession.
And how many games do they play in a season? The high school level.
I would say quite a few. We're looking between 20 and 30.
All right.
Wow. And in Indiana, I've noticed it's an up and coming sport for the girls, but there are girls on boys teams as well for those schools that don't have the girl teams. So you will see girls out there on the lacrosse team where they don't have the opportunity to play. Seeing it grow though quite a bit.
Yep, and women's lacrosse has some very unique rules in their own. That's a whole nother segment.
All right. Well, thank you, Jebber.
Thank
You
you.
bet.
That was an education. Let us know if you have another sport you'd like to learn the rules for, or if you have a question about lacrosse, email us or send us a DM. Facebook, X, Instagram, Twitter is X. Send us an email, settledonthefield@gmail.com. Thank you.
All right. Keep dominating.
Don't talk about it. Be about it.
Thank you for listening to Settled on the Field. Be sure to email us your questions and suggestions to settledonthefield@gmail.com. Follow us on all socials, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. Settled on the Field was produced by Spencer McNally. See you next time.